What's up, everybody? Brother Matthew here. Thanks for checking into the YouTube channel. Hey, if you're new or visiting, my name is Matthew Everhard. I'm the pastor, one of the pastors at Gospel Fellowship PCA. We are a Reformed, Bible-believing church just north of Pittsburgh. If you're looking for a church like that, please come check us out in real life. We'd be very, very glad to have you there with us. Hey, I want to mention my cool shirt, Marry a Woman That Reads Her Bible. My friends Chad and Shauna over there at Cassidy Craft Corner, they let me design up a bunch of shirts that I thought would be cool. So you can get all these in the description of this video. Again, Marry a Woman That Reads Her Bible. True story. I did it, and my life is all the better for having done so. I want to talk about a kind of a controversial topic today, a moral dilemma, if you will, and I don't know that I can answer this one for you. I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance on either side here, but ultimately this is going to be a question that you're going to have to resolve for yourself. And unfortunately, I just can't give you the answer to this one because it truly is one of those moral dilemmas I think is very, very heavy. The question that I want to talk about today, though, is whether or not a pastor should concealed carry. Maybe even let's expand that question to the elders, to the deacons, to Christians in general. Whoever you are, you can probably personalize the question and begin to ask yourself, is the world kind of in a place today where it'd be better if we were carrying sidearms with us in a concealed fashion so as to protect ourselves and our families and our houses and indeed our churches? Now, of course, I am a pastor, and so I tend to personalize that question myself. And perhaps it's because the pastoral role is very unique that this moral conundrum does take on a couple of different wrinkles than maybe it wouldn't take on for you as an ordinary citizen who is not full-time in the ministry, but perhaps works a different day job or whatever else you do. Your situation is going to be different from mine, but I'm looking at this question primarily from the position of a pastor. Now, just a little bit of background here on myself. I did, in fact, get my concealed carry permit when I was living in Florida years ago. I went and I got my concealed carry permit while I was in Florida. But to be completely honest, I never actually used it. I had it just in case, and there was a couple of times that I thought about carrying, but I ended up not doing it at all. But it made me feel better to at least have it, knowing that in certain circumstances I would be able to carry if indeed that was something that I thought was important. For some particular reasons that I don't want to go into, I thought it was more important for my wife to carry, and she did that legally for a little bit of time, but eventually we just got out of the habit, and it was a little bit threatening to us in the sense that neither one of us really grew up with guns and the use of guns and firearms on a regular basis. I personally had very little, if any at all, training in firearms all the way up through my youth into my early adulthood, and so the idea of actually carrying a firearm on my person, a little bit disturbing. So anyway, I got my concealed carry there and never used it. Moreover, interestingly, there was a couple of times where guys in my church that did carry got into a little bit of a couple of interesting situations, and I don't want to go into all the details. But let's just throw out a couple possibilities here, just for the sake of argument. All theoretical, of course, totally theoretical here. But what if an elder was distributing communion and had their concealed carry firearm at the 4 o'clock position and forgot and took off his jacket during the distribution of communion? That might be a bit of an awkward scenario. I'm not saying that ever happened, but we could see what would transpire if it did happen. Let's just say another elder, maybe who was strongly more advocating and carrying, actually left his firearm in the pew by mistake in a bag, and let's just say theoretically somebody found the bag and returned it, and the gun was loaded and ready to go. So that could be awkward. So this could definitely be something that goes wrong for pastors for a number of reasons. But I also want to explore some of the moral dimensions of this as well. One of the things that you'd have to really reckon with if you were going to concealed carry would be the possibility of actually using it. And that is, of course, the purpose of concealed carry, is that you would be prepared to defend yourself or others in the case of an actual situation that may come up. And I have to reckon with that question very, very deeply. This is not so easily dealt with. If you think this is an easy question, I would submit that you probably haven't really done a lot of thinking on this matter. You really do have to contemplate the possibility of dispatching another human being. Now, I went to college at Malone College, which has Quaker roots. I know, interesting, I'm a Presbyterian, right? And there's a strong pacifistic ideology there in the Quaker system, the Quaker faith. And one of our professors there, a guy called Dr. John Geib, he strongly advocated for pacifism under the presupposition that no Christians should ever send another person immediately to the judgment. And that's, of course, what you would be doing if you actually had to use your firearm and dispatched, if you fatalized, if you mortalized another human being, you would be essentially sending that person to judgment. And his understanding, if I'm quoting him correctly, and I certainly hope that I am, if I'm fairly representing his view, is that he would never want to put somebody into eternity, into the judgment straight away, for lack of an opportunity for that person to repent of their sins. And so you do have to think about that. That's a pretty serious consideration that you would have to take into deep thought. Are you ready to put somebody into the judgment by killing them, by fatalizing that person? Is that something that you are prepared to do? That's a really serious question. The other thing we have to talk about here kind of goes back to the possibility of some sort of an accident. Would an accidental discharge of any kind, either in your church, in your congregation, in your home, would that be worth the cost of having your firearm on you at all times, given that it's fairly likely that you may never actually have to use it? I don't know what the percentages are, but my guess would be that 99% of people that carry a firearm never have to discharge it in an urgent situation. They may, and they better be prepared to do so if they're going to carry one. But the possibility of an accidental discharge, actually, I don't know. What are the odds of that? What are the odds that either you would have to really use it and fire upon another human being, or that you'd have an accidental discharge? I'd say both of those things are probably very, very rare. But nevertheless, they are the possibility is greater than zero that one of those two things would happen. Are you prepared for those kinds of possibilities? The other thing, too, that you'd have to think about, and this would be true either in an accidental discharge scenario or a purposeful discharge scenario, is any sort of legal liability that may be incurred. So let's just say either one of those two possibilities happens, and God forbid that either one of those scenarios would ever take place. What kinds of legal liabilities would you be incurring, either for yourself personally or for your church corporately, if one of those two scenarios were to ever happen? I think, too, that the liabilities that may be incurred might be something to really, really think about. And again, I'm not trying to turn you off to this. I'm not trying to tell you what the answer is. I'm telling you some of the things that I've been mulling over and dwelling very deeply about in the last couple of weeks or so, for reasons I'll explain in just a moment. There is, too, the possibility that we might accidentally intimidate our people. And again, I'm thinking in terms of pastors and elders and Sunday school teachers and things like that. Would your people be more intimidated to be around you, to be in church, to be in Sunday school if they knew you were armed versus if they knew that you were not armed? I guess that really depends on maybe where you live or some of the attitudes that pervade the culture of your particular place. So if you're in a rural place in Oklahoma or rural Texas somewhere, maybe even you're open carrying, I don't know. But if you're in the city, where firearms are very much thought of as something quite dangerous and perhaps illegal under many circumstances, then your people might be quite intimidated by that, and maybe that should be something that you do think about too. A couple more thoughts here, and these are all leaning towards the no, as you can see from my first kind of foray here into this discussion, kind of leaning towards the no. What about too, the spin and misrepresentation by the media? Let's suppose that an actual event takes place, and for entirely justified purposes, you do have to discharge your firearm in a way that's in accordance with the law, legally, and for self-protection, of course. Would the media represent that fairly? My guess is that they would not. In fact, I would suggest that in the current media climate, the secular media would do absolutely everything possible to spin it the other way. And we've seen that so many times now, that the media will take the victim and turn them into the criminal, and they'll take the criminal and turn them into somebody that should be felt sorry for. We've seen that recently in the Nashville scenario, where very, very little pity was given to Covenant PCA Church in Nashville, but a ton of pity was given to the transgender killer. Okay, so what would happen with the media in regard to your personal reputation and in regard to the reputation of the church if you were to do that? So again, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying these are things we have to think about. Finally, this, man, we're seeing a lot of what looks to me to be malicious prosecution, again, of the victim rather than the criminal. So we've seen quite a few of these videos happening in the cities and other places where a person legally defends themselves. Their life is clearly in jeopardy from a violent aggressor. They do something, they discharge a firearm in a self-protective way, and yet who gets prosecuted for the crime but the very person who's defending themselves? Okay, so combine all of these arguments together, and that would seem to lean rather heavily towards a no position. But hold on, hold the phone, because the conversation is not over yet. In fact, there are other few things that we really, really do need to think about before we can answer this question. And again, I'm not going to tell you the answer in this video. I'm just helping you lead through the process here. So one of the things that's really, really set in on me lately, and you can tell by the last few videos that I've done on this channel that I've been deeply personalizing and thinking through the issues related to the Nashville shooting, probably because this church is in our denomination, the PCA, the Presbyterian Church in America. Not only that, but we have people here that know people there. The PCA is a big, wonderful, loving denomination, big enough to be big, but small enough that it's a small world, and people know each other and care for each other and love each other and pray for each other. And so the Nashville shooting by the transgender killer, that has been deeply unsettling to me. And one of the things that's really, really obvious, and this would lean towards the yes, is that there is simply no way to stop these violent situations except for the use of force. Force has to be stopped with force. And unfortunately, I think it's just becoming obvious that in these kinds of scenarios where a large group of people is suddenly accosted by a person wielding various firearms of high potency, that the only way to stop that kind of aggression is with equal force. And what that means then is the necessitation of arming by way of legal concealed carry or other carry firearms. Security is the only way to do this. It's just impossible. I just think with these kinds of shootings that we've seen in Uvalde and Nashville and so many other places now, just saw another one in Louisville, that I don't see any other way. Talking to the person, arguing with the person, rationalizing with the person, these things are not going to be helpful. When somebody shows up with live streaming equipments and high potency firearms, that's the only way to end this crisis. We've seen in Uvalde that the tragedy was made magnitudes worse because of the readiness of firearms, legal firearms, the good guys, to stop a psychomaniac, maniacal killer. And unfortunately, that tragedy was far worse than if any sort of preparations had been made. And of course, we've seen the delay of the police officers and just absolutely tragic, made so much worse. Whereas in the Nashville shooting, one of the things that we learned is that the police readiness to very, very aggressively and directly confront the shooter with shooting actually stopped the tragedy from being far, far, far worse. Of course, we did see 6 fatalities. So heinous and so sad, so heartbreaking. Nevertheless, in compared to scope of other such tragedies, the Nashville police responded with force, with directness, and with speed. And that does seem to be the only remedy to confront these kinds of hostile situations. Okay, so that weighs heavily in the favor of armed protection. Let me bring up another possibility here. One of the things that has been much under discussion is our own people asking, what are we doing to protect them? If you are the pastor of the church, if you are amongst the elders or the diaconate or however you organize your church, some of your people may be very directly asking you these questions. Pastor, what are you doing to protect us? In this case, there's certain information that we can share and other information that we don't share, plans and things like this that we need to think about. But a pastor better have a good answer to that question. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can solve it. You can hire security. You can hire security detail. In one of my churches, we used to hire an officer all the time. He did traffic, but he was also there for the sake of protection. I see that a lot now. You could hire private security. You could have people that are on the ready, let's say, to be available to respond to certain situations. And so from that extent, then, this may actually extend the confidence of your people that your church leadership has thought through these issues and is doing something to care for the people in that way. Here's another argument in the favor of perhaps concealed carry or other measures to protect the security of the church. But it's a sad argument. I hate to bring this up, but man, I just really think with the ideology that was behind the Nashville shooting in particular, that unfortunately, and God forbid that this would ever be, that these kinds of hate crime shootings against Christians are going to be on the rise. I think pastors should think about this. Please don't be that kind of Pollyanna, glass half full, sky is never falling type person that thinks that this is a one and done situation in which there won't be other events like this. As the culture moves away from Christianity, as the culture gets more vitriolic, hostile, antagonistic towards things of the faith, the unbelieving culture is going to continue to assail us with ideas that we're racist, that we're phobic, that we're haters, whatever else they want to call us. Of course, none of these things are true. We're very, very, very rarely true, at least to be at least objective there. Very, very rarely true about churches and Christians. But nevertheless, that's what the culture foists upon us. That's the reputation that they want us to have. They want us to be villainized. They want us to be seen as extremists and dissenters to public progressivism and things like this. And so I do think that unfortunately your more maniacal people out there are going to take measures into their own hands. And unfortunately even the politicians kind of pushing them that way. It's a crazy world we live in, but I do think pastors, elders, deacons, and churches need to think about these things a little bit more. One more final factor might suggest towards the yes, the concealed carry or other security measures. Again, you think through these on your own. I'm not going to give you the answers here. Is that there is a sense in which if it's known that there is forcible deterrent present at a church, that is less likely to be seen as a soft target. Now, again, going back to the Nashville situation, man, I really, really wish they would release that doggone manifesto. I'm fired up about it. I want to see the manifesto in Nashville because there's things that we need to know for our own protection. For instance, we have heard, at least a little bit that they've released to us, that the transgender killer Audrey or Aiden Hale had considered multiple different targets, but some of them they did not, he, she, whatever, did not select, not trying to be political there, just whatever, didn't select because they were known to have better security available. And perhaps the Nashville church school was chosen because it was known to have less security. In that case, the public knowledge that a church is prepared, they're prepared, they've thought through these things, and they're ready to encounter difficult moments in a moment of speed and clarity. If they're known to be prepared, then they are less likely to be chosen and targeted for that reason. So that may be something to think very, very deeply about oneself. Okay, so I think it's a difficult moral dilemma. Some of you probably think it's a very easy dilemma. I don't think it's an easy dilemma. I think it's a hard dilemma. I think it's something that really, really should be thought through and prayed through. I will tell you this, though. I'm very, very thankful that I live in a county here where concealed carry permits are easy to get. In fact, it has been my experience that getting a concealed carry permit here in Western Pennsylvania is easier than buying a bag of ice at the dollar store. It really, really is. You go to the county departments, to the building, the courthouse building, Walk right in, 5 minutes, a little bit of a background check and providing some ID and things like this, and all of a sudden you've got that concealed carry permit. And you might want to get that for the reasons that I've given, even if you choose to concealed carry irregularly or perhaps only in certain situations. But it would probably be better to have it than to not have it. Okay, that's my thoughts on this issue. It's a difficult one. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please share with me in the comments below. Do love you lots. Thanks for checking in. Talk to you later.